What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Roundup here on Touchline Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content going up on the channel. Lots to get to, starting with the chaos that has ensued in the Eastern Conference during the MLS playoffs. And this format, we're in year 2 now with this best of 3 series in the first round, theoretically is supposed to benefit the teams that are the higher seeds that did better in the regular season. Obviously, it's a money grab. That's why they're doing this. More games, more TV revenue. But there was an actual argument to be made that it does reward the teams that do better in the regular season, right? Because you're not playing a one-off game now that can end your season. If you lose that first game, you still have a chance to make it up. And last season, it wasn't even necessary. There wasn't much of a change. The better teams took care of business in the first round. The real exception there was the Sporting Kansas City, St. Louis City series, and there were a lot of reasons why that was not particularly surprising either. So the data points were obviously only one year of them, but not suggesting we would have some kind of dramatic impact in terms of the way the playoffs unfold because of this change. And then this season happened where the Crew would have lost in the old format and then lost anyway in the new format. So you go, okay. And then we had this weekend where your number one overall seed, your best team in MLS regular season history, won the first game, would have been through to the next round in the old format, and then lost twice in a row. And the number 3 seed in the East, who is at the very least a top 5 team in MLS, won the first game, and then lost the second and the third in a shootout that they somehow managed to keep surviving and then ultimately lost. One of the stranger shootouts you're going to see in terms of just, I think it was 5 straight misses at one point. But NYCFC got through. So FC Cincinnati also paid the price for a new format that was supposed to benefit them by giving them that second chance when they lose game 1. But we had the opposite happen here, where these teams won game 1, lost game 2 on the road, which is understandable, and then came back and lost game 3 at home. And so now we live in a world where Orlando City have home field advantage through the Eastern Conference portion of the playoffs up to MLS Cup. And they had the same number of points as the lowest remaining team in the Western Conference. Meaning that if Minnesota United somehow get to MLS Cup and Orlando does not win the East, Minnesota United, despite having zero home field advantage through any part of the actual conference playoffs, will host MLS Cup because the top teams in the West survived and the top teams in the East are gone. It is what makes this league great. It's unpredictable, and I want to focus on the Miami part of this. Jordi Alba called it unfair. I agree. That's the point. That's why I keep emphasizing this. And this year is illustrating it in a way that usually I have to go talk about this after some team has won, as opposed to using these examples of these teams losing to illustrate this point. It's not fair. And that's okay. We just need to operate in a world where we acknowledge that this is an unfair system that works against the best teams and does not reliably give you a worthy champion. I have no issue with the playoffs. The playoffs are awesome. You never know what's going to happen. That's what makes it fun. That's why we do it here in the United States. But then we take the results of the playoffs and draw these big conclusions from them. And I continue to say, I'm not going to harp on this point again this time because I talked about it with the Crew last week. We just need to stop doing that part of it and understand that this is a specific small set of games. Weird things happen. You're not necessarily set up for the best team to always win, especially in a sport where you can park the bus, where you can play for a penalty shootout when you know you're not the favorite. We just need to embrace it and accept it for what it is and enjoy it for what it is, because it's awesome. The other thing that makes this league awesome is what we saw in Miami on Saturday night, where a 40-year-old Brad Guzan stood on his head, was absolutely spectacular, and took down Messi, Suarez, Alba, Busquets came into the game. All of these world-class, Champions League winners, World Cup winners. And it was 40-year-old Brad Guzan who made the difference and was quite possibly the best player on the field. I say that to say, of course, all of the MLS executives are freaking out because now your most marketable team, the one that you want to always be able to push, is gone. Your, maybe not from a popularity standpoint, but the Columbus Crew are an important part of this story as well. It's kind of the team battling Miami for supremacy, right? They're gone. But this is, so from a money standpoint, of course everybody's freaking out. It is also good for the integrity, and I'm using that word loosely, the reputation, I guess is a better word, of the league, that this happened. Because there were a lot of people that have jumped in with Messi, went, oh, look at this defending, look at these goalkeepers, this league is a joke, look at, he's just tearing it up, which was not true at the beginning, and became much more true this season. I've become a big defender of the entire Inter Miami team and how good they were, and the fact that we need to celebrate that and reward that as the Supporters Shield champions, because I'm a big believer in the Supporters Shield. But it was just never true. Of course he's going to make people look bad. He's Messi. This Atlanta team really shouldn't be even in the playoffs. They needed so many things to go right on the final day. The Union blew a lead at home. But here they are. Why? Because they have really good players. Because Brad Guzan played in the Premier League. And at that position, you can have games like that at 40 years old. Alexei Miranchuk is a very good player who has played at a really high level. That team spends money. They've got talent. And so it's been fun to see the Atlanta Uniteds, the New York Red Bulls, the NYCFCs pull these upsets and look good doing so. Just objectively. I'm not talking about the teams in particular. They all come with their own things, particularly NYCFC. But just to remind everybody, this league has really good teams across the board. That it is never a given when you show up. It is different for a variety of reasons than the Premier League. And we're going to get to Manchester City next. But you can't lose to anybody on any given day. There is no inevitability about it. And this season is just laying that out and making it abundantly clear. I just hope we can all take this for what it is. Miami was the best team in the league. I firmly believe that. If you want to say Columbus, fine, you can have an argument. That doesn't change because they lost this series. They easily could have won this series. But they didn't. Because they picked the wrong day and ran into Brad Guzan. Which is just an incredible sentence and what makes this league so cool. This league is fun. It has really good players. It's wild. It's unpredictable. It's entertaining. I'm a big believer that MLS needs to lean into what it is instead of trying to be like everybody else. Because you don't get these kind of stories in other leagues. This is what makes MLS special. And you saw that with this exit. I'm not going to crush Miami. To me, it's not big questions down the line. They've proven they can win in knockout situations, which makes this even more impressive that Atlanta was able to do this. Because Miami know how to win these knockout games. It's not that their style doesn't translate. They won Leagues Cup. You got some more questions, certainly, because you shouldn't be losing a 3-game series when you're up 1-0 to Atlanta, who, fired their coach midway through the season. But it happens. Doesn't mean you need to go start over from scratch next season. There's no need to overreact, because there's never a need to overreact to a format and a competition that is supposed to create chaos and unpredictability. Usually it doesn't create this much, but it is. MLS has gone wild this year with the playoffs. The final point I'll make about this, we got 8 teams left. 2 of them have some kind of argument to be deserving champions, and that is LAFC and the LA Galaxy. And by deserving, I mean when you look at the end, you go, you know what, fair enough. Maybe they weren't the best team in the league, but you can't argue and say they did something, it took some kind of miracle, or they somehow just put it together in the playoffs, a la the New York Giants, something like that. Right? This is the Columbus Crew thing. They don't win the Supporters' Shield, but you go at the end, you go, yeah, I mean, by the end, they were probably the best team in the league. UConn's men's basketball 2 years ago as well. They don't necessarily look at it from start to finish, but by the end, you go, can't complain. You can't say that it didn't give us a fair enough champion. Everybody else, you just can't say that about. Orlando is the 4th best team in the East. Sorry, doesn't count. You probably had 5 teams. 3 of them are gone. That's okay. That's fun. That's why we love the MLS playoffs. We just don't need to make it more complicated than that or try and draw any larger conclusions here. Chaos ensued. Let's enjoy it for what it is. Then, Manchester City. 4 defeats in a row. Lose to Brighton after taking the lead. All I'm going to say here, because I did talk about this a lot last week too, this looks different. There is, at least in this game, there was not this late bombardment where City are just rolling shot after shot after shot, and you're feeling like you're just trying to survive, and that when somebody actually gets a draw or beats them, you feel like it's some kind of massive stroke of good fortune that they had one good opportunity and somehow held Manchester City off the scoreboard. That's not what this is looking like. This is looking like City are losing games that they maybe deserve to, or at least can justifiably deserve to lose. They're maybe not getting outplayed, because that's really difficult to do, but they're getting played even, where it could go either way. That's what you don't see. And by the way, losses are happening again without Rodri. Look at whether you want to call it the plus minus, whatever, with him in and out of the lineup. This is why he is absolutely deserving of the Ballon d'Or. Vinicius had an argument too. I'm not getting into that. But this is why. He is that important to this team. They are not the same without him, because he is the one irreplaceable piece of that machine. And we're seeing it. Now, this could also all change next week. They could reel off 10, 15 straight wins and still win the league. The good news for City is that there is no Arsenal setting some kind of record pace here. Right? They're very much in this. It's just a lot harder to see them fixing all of these issues because Rodri's not coming back. Because they've got a couple teams right there putting pressure on him, most notably Liverpool. And because it feels a little less inevitable that they're going to string together 10 or 15 straight wins. Right? You usually think, okay, the run is coming. The question is, can somebody hold on? Can somebody keep up the pace? It's not that. Of course the run can come. This is City. But there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of injuries, off the field stuff. I'm a firm believer in the mental toll that trying to do this year after year after year after year takes. When you've already won the league 4 times in a row, you're not trying to do it for the first time or trying to get back on top. I just think it's much less likely we see that late surge where you go, of course they're going to come back. Certainly they can. It's too early to determine anything. The same spot where I was last week. It was too early to call the title race then, when City jumped to the top. It's way too early to rule them out of this thing now. But we have a good title race. City look vulnerable. Those are good things for the Premier League. A couple other things I wanted to mention really quickly. Staying in the Premier League, a 1-1 draw between Chelsea and Arsenal. Arsenal nearly win it with about the last kick of the game. Had, I think it was Leandro Trossard, realized what was behind him and not touched the ball, that would have gone into the back of the net. But he did. The ball did not go in the back of the net, so it was 1-1. Not a particularly great game, pretty evenly balanced. Just wanted to acknowledge that result there. And then, finally, Christine Sinclair's career, incredible career, comes to an end. Rose Lavelle gets a late winner for Gotham to send the Portland Thorns home. Gonna do a little bit more probably next week with the NWSL playoffs. Everything kind of went chalk, so there weren't all that many interesting talking points other than Christine Sinclair. Portland got themselves back in the game, looked like they were going to send it to extra time, but Rose Lavelle comes up big, as she tends to do. And so it's Gotham going through. So I just wanted to take a minute, celebrate, acknowledge, thank Christine Sinclair for all she's done for the sport, for women's soccer in particular, the way she has served the NWSL, that Portland Thorns organization. She's just a flat-out legend. There's no other way to say it. So congratulations to her on a great career. Wish her all the best. Going to be very interesting to see where Portland goes from here, as they've been able to kind of have this next group coming in while also holding on to the veterans and sort of transitioning that. Obviously, Christine Sinclair, a huge part of that team. It's going to look different without her there. We'll see what kind of other changes happen this offseason. That is all for the Weekend Roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.